What's up? It is your girl Courage Molina, and I'm here with Big Business Brittany. What's good? How are you, Brittany?
I am fantastic, especially being here with you.
I'm so glad. So, listen, y'all know this is the podcast for Courageous Disciples, and so today we want to talk about a topic that we probably need to talk about this more if we're honest, but we don't often. And it is about forgiving yourself. When we got ready to start this podcast, I just became so nervous because
We,
we I'm typing in this title. I knew what it was going to be. I knew what we were talking about today. I typed in this title and my mind immediately began to flood with all the things I have been forgiving myself for, and I wonder if I need to do more than I've been doing. And that's why I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know how I'm going to feel during this conversation." Um, I'm not a person. I feel like I haven't had a lot of regret in my life up until this point. I made a lot of mistakes. I did things I shouldn't do, but forgiving myself, I'm like, okay, well, I tried it, or okay, I feel like I'm a good person. So if I did something, I did not have malintent. So it has not been difficult for me to forgive myself. But as a mother with adult children and seeing like how they are navigating life with the tools and the lack of tools and the trauma and the things that they were exposed to because they had me as a mom, that has been extremely difficult in this season. Before now, I'm like, I can't really relate. But now at this big age, and my kids are at their big age, yeah, it hits differently. It hits differently, you know?
yeah, it's interesting this relationship with forgiveness because it's almost as if in certain phases of your life you feel like you've kind of mastered forgiveness sometimes until you find yourself thrust into another phase of life you didn't see coming, or you kind of settle into that phase of life or something, and then all of a sudden you realize, um am I really serving myself well? What are things that I'm holding on to that I just don't even acknowledge? It's amazing how much we can suppress, how
Oh,
much our minds can suppress, that it may not be there every day, but it's taking up mental real estate that we really can't afford to be renting out. Um, and it can happen it happens in some of the most simplistic parts of our lives as well as the more complex. For instance, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but in my life I have experienced miscarriage, and I didn't realize how that played a role in how I treated my body in terms of trying to live a healthier lifestyle, because it was something I just went through it. I didn't really give myself time to grieve it or process. It just like happened, and it was like it was kind of a quick thing. I found out I was pregnant. I was expecting, and almost as quickly as I found out, I miscarried. But what I never did was give myself grace to understand, even with my body, trying to lose weight and trying to figure out how I even got here. Like,
yeah.
you know, looking in the mirror, I'd be like, now girl, how you get here? But not even giving myself grace to understand, even though I have not went full term with the pregnancy before, my body was still expecting. My body still went through a lot of things, even in that short time, because I didn't even know, why my body was acting the way it was acting at the time. But even in those things, like that happened years ago, and I never really thought about it until like this year. And I was like, dang, my body has actually brought forth life before, even though it wasn't full term. Like, and I never even gave myself grace for that. I never gave my body grace for that. I was just hard on my body. Like, why are you picking up all this weight when you just look at food, not even acknowledging the gravity of what my body had been through. And it happens, it kind of creeps up on you sometimes. And it can create sabotage in a lot of ways that we don't even understand, because that forgiveness thing, it's a sneaky, oh, it's sneaky.
Yeah, because when you live in unforgiveness for yourself, that's a breeding ground for unworthiness. That's a breeding ground for low self-esteem. That's a breeding ground for reckless behavior, because there are so many things that you don't deserve because you are keeping an account, you're keeping a record of all the things you did wrong, of all the things you should have been doing better, of all the things that we allowed to happen. I have my air quotes up if you're listening. If you're listening to it, like all the things we've allowed to happen because I found myself in this state. I don't deserve to do these things. And so we really limit ourselves, even when we present with full confidence, right? We present to the world. And if asked, are we confident? We would say yes. But we know the type of thoughts that plague us when we're having a rough day, or when we're having those rough moments, or when something goes wrong. We take it all the way, like we get so extreme. Okay, I thought this was going to work out and it didn't work out. Then we start to question whether we are worthy for that success. Do I deserve to have the success? Well, maybe God is trying to grow, maybe the Lord is trying to do this. Meanwhile, the Lord is not trying to teach you a lesson. He's waiting for you to walk in the forgiveness that is yours, that you have yet to accept, understanding that forgiveness is so tied to our identity. Like it is so, we define ourselves by by like the things that we've done, or like you said, the things that we've like, what, how did I get here? How did I allow myself to get here? I wonder, when you were sharing about your miscarriage, and I definitely did not know that. I'm so sorry to hear that. When you were sharing, I wondered, did you not take time, do you think, like if you think back now, right? If you can think back to what you were thinking at the time, did you not take time because you felt like you didn't deserve it? Like you hadn't been pregnant long enough to, like, you hadn't earned the right to mourn the loss of your child because you didn't have that experience? Do you think that's why?
Absolutely. Yeah. And and you see it in that perspective, but also like for those of us who are in the business world as well, there is like this narrative that you're not a real business person, you're not a real entrepreneur unless you are full-time in it. It's like this all or nothing mentality. And the truth is, you may be called to be your all in two places. Okay. It might be in the marketplace, and it might be also in the workplace as well. Everybody's not called to choose.
Yeah.
Some people are, but not everyone is called to choose. And because of that ideology that sometimes weighs on us, there is this thing that we inherit. Like we believe if I don't hit a certain milestone, I'm not really worthy of
Yeah.
what comes with that. I'm not worthy of the title of being an entrepreneur. I'm not worthy of the title of being considered a mother. I'm not worthy of the title of whatever it is. But it's like we're striving towards this mark, but whose mark is it?
And along with that, like when you start thinking along those lines, I'm not worthy of something, you begin to accept a different identity. I'm not worthy to be an entrepreneur. I'm a fraud. I'm not right. I'm not actually doing this thing. That means I'm something else. We begin to take on these other identities, and those identities keep us from moving forward. I feel a little bit on the emotional side right now. I'm not really sure why, but as you were talking, I was
Same.
just thinking, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's happening, but I feel a little emotional right now. But I think about how much work people put in, how much time and effort and blood and sweat and tears, and how people are showing up consistently and not necessarily seeing the growth and the fruit that they want, and then being told by people who are in their harvest season, oh, like you're not a real whatever, right? And then getting to a place where you start to recognize, well, I've allowed what they said, these external things, to have an impact on me. And then now here comes guilt about that. now back, like now I feel bad about myself because I've allowed myself to feel bad about something somebody else said. And it's just this vicious circle. What, how are you dealing with this? You, Brittany, right? I mean, I know that I've known, listen, me and Brittany, we go back a little bit, okay, out here in these entrepreneur streets, baby. Okay. And so we've been on this journey at the same time and together, just encouraging each other, holding each other accountable, falling off, losing our mind, losing ourselves, losing our identity, dealing with family things, losses, like grief, like all of these things. But we are still here, right? We're still here. That I wonder, let me ask you this before I make an assumption. Have you been forgiving yourself for, are you in a place where you are walking in forgiveness and you have forgiven yourself for whatever the accuser is accusing you of, and for the things that you act, because sometimes we actually did something, right? Have you forgiven yourself over this, like, past, you've had a lot over the past couple years, you know,
Yeah.
this past few years have been a lot. So have you forgiven yourself?
Okay, so what y'all don't know is, like, right before we got on here, we both discussed feeling emotional as we do this. So I'm not even about to apologize for these tears that are now rolling. I just want to take a moment to say how much I truly appreciate your friendship and having you in my corner during this journey. Most people don't know, for whatever reason, God aligned our lives. And most of the time, we tend to be going through the same stuff at the same time behind the scenes. People only see how you show up.
Yeah.
They don't know what it takes for you to show up. Yeah. And I don't take it lightly having you in my corner. I love you and I appreciate you so much. And I'm so grateful God allowed our paths to merge, because he knew I would need courage in my life.
Same.
So it has required a lot of self-forgiveness over the past couple of years. Business ebbs and flows, personal ebbs and flows, reestablishing my identity. Like, even though in a lot of ways I am called to help other people become established in what they are called to do, you never really reach this place where you just know forever what you are supposed to be doing without any insecurity, without any questioning if you're on the right path. So many things will make you question who you are and who you are called to be, because also at various points in our lives, that assignment does shift some. And so you have to relearn who you're supposed to be. You have to make sure you're in position to even hear who it is you're supposed to be. And you have to be in position to surrender to who you're supposed to be. We are so set on creating the version of ourselves that we have ideated in our heads. But have we truly consulted God? And even if we have consulted God, we have to understand that he is so supreme that he could never really fully express who we are called to be in one setting. We can't handle it. We could not handle it if he told us exactly who it is that he has called us to be in each season of our lives. So when our lives start to not mimic what we had painted in our heads, it's so easy to harden your heart towards yourself. Forget hardening your heart towards other people.
Yeah.
Hardening your heart towards yourself, to where you don't even want to hear your own voice. You don't even want to, you just don't even believe in yourself. You carry so much guilt because, again, you're questioning, how did I get here? Not realizing it's very likely you're supposed to be there. It's something there for you. There's something you got to grab. Forget getting it for other people down the line. There's something you're going to need for you later down the line. I think back to some of the things that have happened to me earlier in life. And, there's this song, sometimes you have to encourage yourself.
Oh, girl, that's my song.
Some of that stuff I went through at the time, I was telling myself, baby, you got to get through this because God gonna use this to bless somebody else at some point. No, baby, some of that stuff I went through, God had to use it to minister to myself again at a different phase in my life, so that I could remember not how I saw him show up for somebody else, but so I could remember the thoughts of insecurity, the thoughts of guilt, the thoughts of being uncertain about life in general. Remembering, I know this place, but I also know who he is to me when I'm in this place. And that's the thing. Like, we have to experience certain things to remind us of who he is when we are in that place. He doesn't leave us, he doesn't forsake us. He's right there with us. And we've talked about this before. Like, sometimes we have to be honest with God and say, God, I know that you're here, but I can't feel you. I cannot feel you. God, I want to feel your presence with me. Because yes, you got to be still and know. But baby, sometimes I need to be still and feel you. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to be
Yeah.
still and feel
Yep.
your
Yeah.
presence. So it has been a constant battle this past couple of years, because I've been through so many things that I had never I would have stood 10 toes down flat footed and told you I would never have to deal with this, or that's not ever going to be a part of my life story. But baby, I ain't the author. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we be kind of like, I could kind of take the reins on this part of my life for sure. We are not the author of any parts of it. Our job is to stay kneeled, to stay surrendered, so that we are in a position to hear and yield to what God's plan is for our life. What is his design for our life? And stop trying to marry ourselves to what we have single-handedly scripted up, as if we really have that much authority. So
Yeah.
I been forgiving myself some days, and that's being honest.
Yeah.
Some days. And there are days where, which is why I don't take it lightly, having people like you in my life, having someone like you in my life, having a strong support system. Because there are literally days where you have to, baby, you got to substitute. Okay. You gotta switch out. You gotta borrow somebody else's belief in yourself. You gotta borrow someone else's confidence in you. You gotta borrow someone else's vision to be able to see yourself the way God wants you to see yourself. Because there are days it gets cloudy.
Yeah.
There are days I can't hear him too well. There
Yeah.
are days where I question whether I deserve, like.
Yeah. Listen, the enemy is so cunning. We have to remember that he's also defeated, right? And
Yes.
I don't really like to give him a lot of credit, but the truth is, if he can get us to continue to walk in unforgiveness, then we don't get out of the rut, then we don't experience this peace, then we limit ourselves, then we don't, walk in what God has for us, be it, a thriving business or relationship or healing, like mindset, whatever that thing is that God has for us, we don't walk in that. It is like you are free from something. God has forgiven you. The chains are unlocked. The door to the prison is open, and you still sitting in there in solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
But the door open. It's unlocked. You are forgiven. You are no longer confined to this space. You no longer have to be tied to this space. But then we just sit in it sometimes. And I think it is a process, like you're saying. And there will be days where I got it, and there will be days that I ain't got it. There will be days where I ain't got it. And authentic relationships are such a vital part of remembering who you are, remembering who God is, remembering the promise that God shared. There are a couple things that come to mind. I often see this meme, this thing where it's like, don't share with people what you're doing. And I get that on a certain level. But if Brittany never shares with me what vision God has given her, even if it's just like in a little confidential thing, when she gets down and out and she forgets who she is, or she don't remember what God told her, how can I remind you? How can I hold you accountable to your greatness? You never shared your greatness with me. You know what I'm saying? How can I remind you of who you are and who God has called you to be if you've never shared that thing? Authentic relationship. We met in an online space. We don't live in
Yeah.
the same city. We don't live in the same state. We don't even talk every day. We be months. Just
And
big
we just
fat
pick up
dark.
wherever.
Ain't talked
I
in a month
mean,
of Sundays. Get
most
on
of the time, we already know what. We ain't really got to be like, girl, what's going on? We ain't even really got to say it because what's happening in her life is happening in my life just miles away. It just,
I'm
God
like,
is funny
okay,
like
well,
that with us.
Brittany, this is,
Like,
I ain't talked to you in a minute. This is what I'm dealing with. She be like, girl,
you already know.
I can't even believe how we be on. I'm like, we need to get on the same page on the up. We need to get on the up part and we both doing the same thing. You understand? But that right there goes to show you that even the things that I require, even the things that we need to do for ourselves, right? Even something as simple and something that seems like it doesn't require anybody else, the ability to forgive myself over and over and over until it sticks, because that's how forgiveness works when we're forgiving other people. Sometimes I have to forgive a person because I said I forgave them, but then I took my grudge back with me. I went to the altar, I laid it at the altar, I had a grudge, I laid it down, I was like, no, I'm gonna take that with me just for
Picked it
safekeeping.
right on back
Right,
up.
picked it right back up. Or I thought I left it, but it was like a little string that was still stuck in my pocket. And when I got back to the house, it was there with me, right? Sometimes forgiveness has to happen multiple times. And the same thing is true for us, but without somebody to see us for how we are and remind us of who we are, it can be just a very difficult experience. And it's not meant to be, right? It's truly not meant to be. When I listen to you talk, I think I get emotional because it's like, I have so much love for you, Brittany. And like, you are like good people for real. Do you know what I'm saying? And you deserve all that God has for you. Like, you are good people out here. You mean well by people. You show up in a way. And there are, you know, experiences and situations that have led you to hold yourself, to have an ought against yourself. And I know how heavy unforgiveness is, right? Whether it's for somebody else or for yourself, I know how heavy that is. There's a burden that we have that we carry, even if we don't realize it. And I hate that for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think about what God wants for us and this abundance of peace, that this lightness there is, when he talks about my burden is easy, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. There is this lightness, this light and fluffiness that he wants us to have and operate from. And for us to be walking in anything less than that breaks my heart, because we are true believers, right? That's what I hate for believers. It's part of the reason I do what I do. I remember reading my Bible, like really getting into it. When I really started getting into it, it changed my life. And when I got to the other side, I met this lady. She met me on the other side. She did not know me on the before side. She met me on the other side. And we had some exchanges or whatever. And then one day she was like, Courage, you just have this joy, this youthful, like you, she was like, not, you're not immature. It's like, I just don't know what it is. It's like, you're just fresh and you're new and you just got this fresh energy. And I'm like, well, because I am. I'm like, I was dead, but now I'm like, I am. And when I got to the other side and I started to think like, okay, she's right. There is this light and this freshness that you don't see when people have lived a long time. They've gotten a certain age, they've been through some things, and there's this heaviness that comes with it. And I started to think, it's because I've been reading in the Bible, and I hate that believers. I understand that people in the world, my heart is broken for those who don't know Christ. It is not God's heart that any man should perish, right? So I do have a heart for that. However, I understand how they could be, how they could be struggling with. I understand it because our
Yeah.
hope is in Christ. But when I think about how we are daughters of Christ and we are not living in that space mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally, that is so upsetting to me, because Like our dad is God, is the God who said, let there be light. If we knew who we were, if we understood this word, if we understood that, my mistakes will bless me. The bad decision is going to bless me. Me allowing myself to get to this place is going to bless me, because the word of God says he's working together all things for my good. So I did take a wrong path. I did stay down a little bit longer than maybe I shoulda, coulda, woulda. But now that I've returned to myself, I've come back to my right mind and I remember who I am. Let me get this thing off of me so that we can get into this place. I don't know how you get there as a believer without real time in the word. I don't know, without this, intimate. I don't know how you get to a place where it's like, you know what? I did mess up. Or it didn't work out. It was horrible. It was worse than I thought it was going to be. I never thought that I would be here. I never thought that this is what I would be experiencing. This is actually bad, right? Okay, I'm here. I don't know how you go from there to this life of peace that's on the inside of you, and the word talks about like joy and chaos and peace that surpasses all understanding. When you think about what those words mean, peace that surpasses all understanding, it means that to look at you and what you have dealt with, or what you're going through right now, or where you are, it doesn't make any sense for you to be at peace the way you are. It surpasses, it goes beyond any level of understanding a person could have, that you are not falling apart, that you have not fallen away, that you haven't given up. And so I understand that that is something that the enemy doesn't want us to have. If we had to think about like practical steps, right? Like if we had to think about, I recognize right now somebody's like, you know what? I didn't realize my heart was heavy, because before we recorded, we started praying that it
Yes.
would get to the people that needed to get it, that you would hear the message that you needed to hear, that your heart would be open to receive from God. And so if the Holy Spirit is revealing to you in this moment, baby girl, sir, there are some things that you need to that you need to forgive yourself for. There are some things that God has forgiven you for, but you're still walking in guilt and shame, and that's not your portion. Therefore, there is now no condemnation. Like I understand you did this. No, yeah, you did it, but this is the forgiveness that God is calling you to walk in. When you realize you're carrying that heaviness of unforgiveness for yourself, and you realize that you're not living in this peace, I know that it's like, okay, I get it. Great. I need to forgive myself. What does that sound cute? Forgive yourself, guys. All right. Thanks for watching. Right. That sounds super cute. What does that process look like? Right. Because we already said it's up and down, it's good days, bad days. But what are we doing? What are some things that you are doing that is helping you move the needle, albeit on a cycle, up and down type of thing? What is just like, I'm doing this. This is a practical thing that's going to help you to really get to a place where you can, forgive yourself.
First, we got to acknowledge stuff, because like I said, even with me, there were things I didn't even acknowledge that I skirted over, in years past. I ain't even paid no attention until this year. Like we have to get in a quiet place. Like when we're trying to establish peace on the inside, we're going to have to manipulate our external factors too, to create a space of peace so that we can internalize it. So still away. Okay, still away. And it don't mean you got to go far. Just still away. It might be in your car or something, but you're going to have to be intentional about spending time with yourself, and spending time with God uninterrupted. One of the best things I ever could have started doing was not being intentional about having prayer time with God, but having quiet time in the mornings to hear him, so I could commune with him and with myself. Because some stuff we don't recognize about self. I'm talking about down to just paying attention to yourself, to be honest. I had stumped my toe one day and broke the nail on my pinky toe. I literally, because of, I guess, a high pain tolerance or whatever, I didn't even pay it any attention, really. Like, I wasn't, even when I would like lotion my feet and stuff, I'm in a rush. It's little things like taking time with yourself, because forgiveness requires time. Take time and oil your body in the mornings. Don't be so rushed that you're just oiling yourself down or putting your Vaseline or lotion on in a rush every morning. Pay attention to your body. Pay attention to how things make you feel. Pay attention to how people make you feel. With me, I had stumped my toe, didn't even know my whole, all right, this girl talk, my whole toenail hadn't came off on the pinky toe. Okay. And I didn't even pay any attention. And I had to go get a pedicure a few days later. And the girl was like, "You don't feel this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I've been having a little pain, like a little nagging pain, but I wasn't even paying attention to myself." One of the best things you can do is have some quiet time in the mornings, at night, in the middle of the day. Maybe it's a midday reset, so that you can learn to start enjoying time with yourself, time to hear God. And then the other thing I would say is, a huge part of forgiveness for me means sometimes we are trying to seek forgiveness without fortification. So just like you talked about the relationship side of thing and being intentional about who you are connected to, who are those gateways in your life, who are those sources of strength, those sources of encouragement, who are those people in your life. Sometimes we're so focused on the forgiveness, we're not being intentional with the fortification. Who's going to fortify you? Who's going to remind you of who you are called to be? Who's going to hold you accountable? Who's going to redirect you? And when we think about the word fortify, it literally means to create a defense, a method of defense against attack. What is your fortification strategy while you're trying to think about your forgiveness strategy? How am I being fortified? So, like you were saying, like reading the Bible, like where am I getting my source of strength? How am I building a defense? Because sometimes our mind is going to be our biggest enemy. So, how am I fortifying myself? Yes, I need forgiveness, but even more than that, I'm going to need fortification, because that forgiveness is just not going to hold up, good people. I'm going to tell you, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are in your journey. Forgiveness itself does not hold up. You need fortification. You're going to need a strong support system that serves as a method of defense for attacks on your mind, attacks on your emotions, attacks on your family, attacks on your finances, attacks on just whoever, whatever is connected to you. You are going to need a method of defense against that. And I think if we spend more time thinking about how can I fortify my finances, how can I fortify my relationships, how can I fortify my mind, how can I fortify my emotions, the forgiveness can then, we are creating an incubator for the forgiveness. If we shift our minds to how am I fortifying myself? Because forgiveness itself ain't gonna hold up.
You said a lot. That is so good. Let me start with this fortification. I absolutely love this. The word of God talks about guarding our heart. We see so many times in the word of God where somebody's like, the Lord is my strong tower. I don't think we know what those words mean. It means I'm using God to fortify, right? Strong tower is a place that I go for protection. Its sake keeps me right against attack. The Lord is my refuge. Same thing. It's a place I can run to and get protection. And the word talks about the importance of relationship, right? So it's not like these things. I think sometimes we get so super spiritual, like, well, you just got to trust God or just believe God. If you just trust and believe God, then you will also trust and believe his word. And his word talks about being in the word. His word talks about loving your neighbor as yourself. That means that there is a standard for which you have to take care of your own body. The word talks about when one walks alone, woe to the man that fall, because he gonna fall and ain't nobody there to pick him up. How can he keep himself warm, right? The word talks about all the things that you're saying, renewing our mind. What messages am I getting in? The Lord knows this because It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen like in this isolated vacuum. No, you are exposed during your healing process. You are exposed, and forgiveness is a part of your healing. Forgiving myself is a part of my healing. I'm healing from trauma, disappointment, disagreement, rejection, perceived, like whatever. I'm healing from those things. That means this forgiveness process is a part of a healing process. I would not allow for a wound to just be exposed. If I knew that this thing needed time to heal, there was a cut that I got and I needed time to heal, I would not just allow it to be exposed to the elements.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I knew the elements was poison and dangerous, I would be like, There would be certain fabrics I wouldn't wear, certain t-shirts I wouldn't wear because it's gonna rub my wound the wrong way. Certain people I wouldn't be around, certain places I wouldn't go. Like, they house dirty. I can't have no infection getting in my arm. I would do that. The same thing is true on this journey of forgiving ourselves. But something that I had not considered before this moment, you talk about basically self-care, right? I never, first of all, when you started talking about it, I'm gonna be honest, I'm like, I don't know where this going. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know where my girl going with this. But I stuck with you, and
you roll with it. Yeah.
I stuck with you. And as you were talking, I came to this realization that the reason that we don't do those things is attached to unworthiness, right? And that unworthiness is one of the fruits of unforgiveness. I don't forgive myself. I have all this art against me, right? Like, okay, I stubbed my toe. I'm not even going to take the time. Like, friend, I say this with love and respectfully, as the kids say, okay? You're doing too much if you're told and you're not even checking on your own body. You understand what I'm saying? It's not an extension of you. It's on your own, but you're doing too much, friend. Or you ain't doing enough. I don't actually know which one it is. But it made me think of when I used to say, this was years ago. So don't do me. Okay, don't do me. That's first of all before I say it.
We just listen. I'm laying out. I done told people about my pinky toe, so we just laying it out there, okay?
I didn't used to wash my face. Now listen, I listen. I would take, taking a shower, take the water. I would do like this. If I wore makeup, I would have to wash the makeup off. But as far as like, oh, I got this skin, and I didn't use the soap because the soap dried my skin out or whatever, and all these things. And so Olivia was like, that is so disgusting. I'm like, I mean, I do. She said, how you wash your face? I said, I do it like this. She said, is that how? She said, do you use soap? I'm like, no. She was like, well, when you wash your behind, do you use soap? Like, you only use water? I was like, no, obviously I use soap. She was like, exactly. It's not washing if you didn't use soap. I don't know why it was like that. I have no idea. The only thing I ever used to wash my face was Dove, but it wasn't a priority. So it's not something I had all the time. And so she was telling Mary Kay at the time, and she's like, this is all you need. It's going to be so great. It'll clear your skin up. I have oily skin, and so I would break out in the summer, and I never would have said that my skin was dull because those are not the words that I use, but I realized in retrospect that my skin, she's like, it's going to make your skin more radiant. I was like, you sound like a commercial. And she's like, let me tell you what to do. And she started telling me all the steps. And I said, well, about how long that take? She said, well, it take about 10 minutes for you to do the whole thing, 10, 15 minutes. I was like, I ain't got that kind of time. And she was like, did you hear what you just said? You said you don't have 10 minutes to wash your face, protect your skin, moisturize. She's like, you just said you don't have 10 minutes for that, area of hygiene. She was like, she's like, you too busy. If you ain't got 10 minutes to wash your face, you're too busy. And I was like, I never thought about that. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start doing it. This is something I never would have considered, that self-care, slowing down. But I can tell you what, though, I can tell you this, that in this season of life, I've slowed down when it comes to taking care. I'm going to take all the time I need in the shower. I'm going to do all the things, right? I'm not just talking about washing my face. I'm talking about all the things. I'm going to do the soap. I'm going to do the scrub. I'm going to do the mask. I'm going to do the oil. I'm going to do the shea butter. I'm going to do the perfume. I'm going to do all the mist, the vitamins. Like, I'm going to do all the things, and it's going to take as long as it take, and I will be out when I get out, because my worthiness has my worth, how I value myself has improved the more I forgive myself for things that I shouldn't have even had beef with myself about, right? The more I forgive myself for the mistakes that I made from a good heart, but from an ignorant mind. I, the more I do that, the more I have the freedom, I feel the freedom. And that doesn't come without, like we said, time in the word. I think those are our go-to things. And I don't want to ignore those, spending time in the word. But as we're spending time in this word and we're trusting and believing God that we are forgiven, what does it look like to walk as a forgiven woman? How does a woman that is blemish free, no blemishes, how does that woman, man, if y'all listening, man, what's up, how does a man or a woman that is, how do they show up? How are they taking care of themselves? What are the boundaries that they're setting? This has an impact on so many parts of your life, right? It is very difficult for you to get to a place of inner peace, like you said, without you recognizing it's going to be a process and without you taking the steps as if you're already walking in it. Don't wait on your feelings. You don't have to feel forgiven to be forgiven. You don't have to feel healed to be healed. I don't feel better, but they just cut the infection out so I know I'm better, right? I don't feel good, but I just took this medicine so I know my body is on, it's on the come up over here, right? You don't have to feel it in order for you to act from that place. That is your faith in action. On this road to forgiveness, forgiving yourself and walking in that freedom and experiencing this inner peace and the just having the weight that's on your shoulder removed so you can walk and move and do. It's easier to obey God when you walking in forgiveness and you're not busy going back and forth with him about your worthiness.
Yeah.
Right. It's so much easier.
He's telling you, what's the scripture where he's like, go, did I not send you?
Right.
Like, did I not?
I'm gonna get it done. How am I, girl? You about
did
to
I not send you? Did you forget I created? You don't think I know what I'm sending into the fire? You don't think I know what I'm sending into the battle? You don't think I know? Did I not send you?
That right there, that'll preach. That right there, a preach by itself. I can't do it because these are the reasons it can't be done. The Lord is like, what? And I wouldn't have sent you. Oh, okay. That right there, because of who I am. I know who I am. I thought you knew who I was too. So let me just remind you that it is that I am that's sending you. So, girl, that's good.
Yeah.
That is so good. And when we walk in this, when we allow this stronghold to kind of take over our lives, it doesn't allow us to walk in what God has called us. This was good. First of all, that taking care of yourself, that's a nugget that I think people would have missed. I certainly would have missed it because
you talked about boundaries, because we really can't talk about this stuff without talking about boundaries. And I remember reading a quote from somebody. I'm sure she's a great psychologist or therapist or something. I don't remember who it was who said it, but I remember her saying something like, boundaries are not created to push people out of your life. Boundaries are created to teach people how to stay in your life. And when we think about that, though, that transpires, like, that's also what's necessary when it comes to boundaries for self. Like, we got to learn how to create and enforce boundaries with ourselves. Like, for instance, you the queen of sending a do not disturb message. Like, I got to get on your level, because I'll slap my phone on do not disturb in a heartbeat. But like, you have automated messages to let people know, hey, I'm working right now. Get to you later.
I gotta manage
my Bible study. Come see me. Come join. Next level type. But like, we have to set boundaries like that. Like, if I say I'm gonna give myself 30 minutes a day to read uninterrupted, then that do not disturb needs to be on. Okay. And I don't need to feel guilty if I miss somebody's phone call when I get back to it. Setting those boundaries with ourselves, setting boundaries about what we eat. Like, okay, I want to get to the best version that my body can get to. So I'm going to set and enforce boundaries about what I'm eating. I'm going to set and enforce boundaries about my skincare routine. I'm going to set and enforce boundaries that allow me to meet that version of myself and keep that version of myself around. You know, it's not me trying to push out this old version of myself. It's just me embracing the best version that I desire. I appreciate the old version. I love her, and she served me well with what she had. But I got to make room for who I'm called to be. And that requires setting boundaries with myself. And that's going to help me set better boundaries with other people. We be feeling guilty about setting boundaries with people, but that's because we don't set boundaries with ourselves.
First of all, I was trying to get off this episode. So what you're not going to do, what you're not going to do is when I'm trying to close out, you're not coming for me on this is my show.
I'm coming for us. I'm ministering to myself as well.
Right. Listen, let me tell y'all, right in this very moment, right at this very moment, we talked about being business owners, and my business is not doing well financially. It is really, it's just, there's no new income coming in. I do have a few clients, and I'm grateful for it, right? Because I would definitely feel a different type of way, right? I would be like, "Ooh, if I could just have 2 clients, if I could just have 8 clients, well, I got them, right?" So, but the program that the Lord gave me at the time of this recording, not one person has enrolled in what will be 2 years in October, right? That is in the basic level. Legacy is the same program, but in the basic level, nobody has enrolled in what will be 2 years. I was separated from my husband. I'm home. And, I know how it sounds, but I'm just going to say it because this is just the real talk.
Mm-hmm.
He pays all the bills, right? And I love him and I'm grateful. And he does not have any attitude about me not bringing any income in. I keep telling him I'm trying to get a job. He like, I mean, okay, but make it one where you work from home. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you feel away. I don't feel away. There's been this thing since I've been back. I have felt like a burden. He has not made me feel like a burden, right? There are things that I have gone without, things that I've needed, I haven't asked for, whether it's like putting stuff up or I needed him to bring my dress up. And I just, I did. He was like, hey, he was like, I didn't even think about that. Why didn't you just say? You could have just told me. I'm like, because I already feel like, how am I contributing to this household? You working all day. We don't have any small kids, right? My business is not doing well, all these things. And so I have a way that I live my life, that I've set this standard, these boundaries. It's why I have those do not disturb. People, everybody talk. First of all, everybody talk about them do not disturb messages, and I do use them. Okay, I definitely do. But I have a certain way, a certain lifestyle that I have set, and I don't mean in how I spend or whatever. I mean in how I spend my time, the amount of sleep that I need to get, the amount of time in the Word, so that I can show up as I am. If I'm called, like people are like, oh, you ready on one? Well, I'm ready on one because there's never a time where I'm not, in a study or doing something, right? I have all these things. And so I have these boundaries with myself, right? But in this season, that's why I said you need to mind your business. Because in this season right now, as we speak, I am kind of going back to like, I don't deserve to go to bed at a certain time. I should be working on, like, you didn't make no money today, so your day not done. What are you doing? And that mindset was like back in 2017, but here it is. Don't call it a comeback. It's back. You know what I'm saying? It's back. It's like I'm in that space. And just today, before we got on this thing, I was up late last night. I was up till past midnight working because I didn't make any money. I got no new sales. I don't deserve to sleep.
That late?
You don't deserve to.
Because y'all might not know, but my girl Courage get in that bed, okay? I don't care what's going on in the world. All right, bombs can be ablazing, but my girl gonna be in the bed.
That was in a world where I knew what I was doing. I felt my value, right? Which shows that my value was attached to things that it shouldn't have been attached to, right? But no, I stayed up past 12 o'clock working. Tonight, before this interview, I was like, oh, I should have coffee so that after the interview, I can stay up late again so that I can work because what have you done? It doesn't mean I didn't do nothing today, but I didn't do anything that earned any income. So I don't deserve. And there are things and choices and decisions that I made. I made those decisions believing that I heard from God. And so now it's like, I'm in this situation. I did it, right? There is this level of unforgiveness that I have. I blame myself. I blame me for where I don't blame nobody. I don't blame the economy. I don't blame no. I blame me for where I am. But a seed in the ground grows at the say so of God. So now I done put myself in the position of God. So this idea that even on this journey of forgiving ourselves, that we need to set boundaries with ourselves, that is really that's really a right now word for me. Do you know what that means? It means I'm going to bed tonight on time. Okay, guys. Whatever doesn't get done tonight, before it is my bedtime. It's not as early as it used to be. For anybody who cares, I no longer go to bed at 7:30. All last year, all last school year, I went to bed at 7:30 so I could get up at 3:30 because that is what I required. See, boundaries. I needed a certain amount of sleep, but I need a certain amount of time in the word with the Lord. But I don't go to bed that early. I go to bed at 9 o'clock now, which is still like a big girl time. 9 o'clock is like big girl time. I set that boundary because I know how much sleep I need, because I know what I need to be rested. But instead, these past few weeks, this past month or so, I've just been working, not keeping my time, not even in my word the way I like to be in my word. Because it's like, well, that's okay. You already studied. You need to be focused on making this money. You need to be figuring out how you can make this money. So I appreciate you for saying that. That's something else that I think I might have missed, right? Like setting boundaries. I immediately thought setting boundaries for other people, not to allow people to mistreat you. But in this season, I have truly been mistreating myself because of some of the decisions, because of some of the outcomes, right? As the result of some of the things that I've done. And I've done things believing I'm following God. We'll know, the Lord says sometimes confirmation comes when it's over. So maybe I'll know when it's over. We ain't done yet, That's something I wouldn't have considered either. Like I'm not keeping boundaries with myself because I don't deserve to be respected, not even by me. Girl, that's a little different.
And
Appreciate you.
honestly, be grateful you're in this season, because
Everybody keeps saying that, and I know it up here.
Yeah, like we hear it, but I'm going back to the fortification we were talking about, because at the end of the day, you know, my belief is that we are big business. And the truth is, if we look at big businesses, that is a part of it.
Yeah.
So sometimes we feel like we need forgiveness in areas that is just leading us to our fruit. Like I gotta go through this to get to the fruit. Like it's just a part of the cycle. We don't give ourselves grace for the cycle sometimes, because not all cycles are bad, but we are being introduced to new levels of ourselves as we experience these new phases in life and these new phases in business, because it always hits you when you least expect it. It always hits you in an angle you don't expect. And so you learn new things about yourself. You learn new ways to take care of yourself. You learn new things you got to start doing to take care of yourself that you didn't have to do before, because your girl realized I got to start stretching now. Okay. I can't just, get up and go sometimes like I used to. I gotta stretch sometimes, because every now and again I hear a little pop and I'll be like, what is my knee doing? So we learn new ways to take care of ourselves in the seasons that we are in. And we have to give ourselves space to understand a lot of it is just it ain't even about us making a wrong turn. Sometimes there's not even a right or a wrong turn. It's just one turn going to get you there a little quicker, and one's going to be a more scenic route. And it
Yeah.
wasn't that it was a right or wrong decision, but sometimes we get hung up there. We get hung up on the right or the wrong, and it stalls our movement, our progression forward, period. Because I'm just stuck on the right or the wrong. And sometimes God, like, it really wasn't even a right or a wrong. Like, you stuck on sticking this thing in a box, and I need you to get your behind moving. Like,
Yeah.
this was supposed to be a 5-second situation. You done turned it into 5 months, or you done turned
You
it into
set up
5 years.
camp.
Like,
You didn't set up camp. You took your tent out. You
okay,
just started a
you put on
fire.
some sunscreen,
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
some citronella candles out there for the
Mhm.
flies and stuff. What do you do?
Yeah. That's good. Listen, if y'all don't take anything away from this, I hope that y'all hear it is a process and it takes more than just saying it one time
And
that
no
you
one's exempt.
nobody, not a single solitary, no matter how transparent, what if you see a soul living and breathing and walking, it's a process for them too. It's a
Mm-hmm.
guarantee. You ain't got to be their best friend. Guess what? You can just look, oh, they living, they breathing. Okay. It's a process for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the process. And so just like keep that in mind as you go through these things. And if you, I say this every single episode, if you are looking for a community, I'm going to keep singing this song where you can get in the Word of God, where you can get fortified in the Word of God, where you can learn how to study the Word for yourself. So you're no longer relying on somebody else to break down the Word for you. You can meet somebody, connect with somebody in this online space, right? Connect with somebody in this online space that will take you, that relationship will expand beyond the length of your time in the membership. The group we were in, I don't even know if I don't even know if they do it anymore, first of all. And two,
I
it
don't
was so many years ago. Like it was, this is not like, oh, the program just started and so we kind of still friends now. No, it's been done. When we met,
Mhm.
that was been long time ago. It will be a friendship that will outlast the membership, your time in the membership, right? It's going to be a place where you can get some structure. It's going to be a place where you can be held accountable. It's going to be a place where somebody can remind you, where you can borrow somebody else's faith. You can be reminded of who you are and who God is in your life. Like,
Because sometimes we show up in a space for the content, but what we don't know is that it's the connections that are going to carry us where the content came.
say that again.
So it ain't just okay.
It's all of it. I think that we miss that. Like, it is, you think you know what you need, but the Lord has, especially for those who are, their business is ministry. I don't care what kind of business it is, but for people whose business is ministry and they are in partnership with God to do the work, whether it's coaching or business, like whatever, content, business, strategic, God has given them that divine download of how much, when, what parts to include, how to deliver it. God was a part of that creation process. I didn't create a course by myself. Brittany's not creating a coaching program by herself. We co-labor with Christ to create this. It means that He knows, even if I don't know, all the parts that you need to get you to the next thing, all
Mm-hmm.
the parts that you need. So it means I can't just come in here and I'm just like you said, I'm just going to get the content. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to get the fellowship. I'm not going to do the content. I'm going to come here and I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. I'm not going to engage. No, all the things that are required, me and the Lord made those decisions and designed this program together, right? And if that's for you, you can go to courageousdisciples.com and get signed up. Like, go to courageousdisciples.com and get signed up, and you won't, it'll change your life. It will definitely change your life. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and say this. What, let's use code, let me think. Oh, use code forgiveness, use code forgiveness, and you will get your first month free, um or $60 off if you pay for the year. right? So you'll either get your first month free. So if you're like, oh, I want to try it for a month, you can do that. If you were planning to get the year-long thing, you can get $60 off. Use code forgiveness and you can get that discount. Listen, Brittany, I so appreciate you being on here.
Girl, you already know. I was so excited when you reached out to me. I was nervous too
So,
because we cut up when we get together. So I was like,
mm-mm.
what is she about to pull out of me?
Nah, big business. Thank you so much for saying yes. I mean, I really appreciate you. Y'all, listen, I'm gonna attach all the ways that you can connect to, watch, follow Brittany's journey and get connected to her in the show notes and all the things. I'll send it out in the email as well. If you love this episode, then say so by writing a review. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. I'm gonna get that right one day. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating, share, hashtag Greatest Disciples at us, Courage Molina. You know what I'm saying? Like, just do all the things. Let us know you loved it. Let us know what really hit. All right, well, Brittany, thank you, boo.
Thank you, love.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Bye.